Three elite receivers are off the board. The market is heating up. And the Dodgers, they're sitting quiet. Too quiet. Today, we break down whether that silence is strategy or a problem.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Harry Ruiz. That's Travis Rodgers, and it's time for Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. On today's show, sportsbooks are already crowning the Dodgers as heavy favorites for 2026. Is the hype justified? Toronto just made two huge moves to fortify what was already a dangerous rotation. Are the Blue Jays suddenly the team to beat in the American League? But first, the reliever market is exploding early, with three top-tier arms signing new deals. But the Dodgers haven't jumped in yet. Should fans be worried, Travis?
I don't know if they should be worried quite yet, but it is interesting to see people moving early because everybody's trying to catch up to LA. We're going to get into all of it on today's episode of Locked On Dodgers, which is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long.
You can catch more of Travis weekday afternoons from 3 to 6 on 710 ESPN LA or the ESPN LA app with the Travis and DeMarco show. As for me, I'm the Spanish play-by-play announcer for USC football and the Las Vegas Raiders. But when I'm not calling touchdowns, I'm right here doing what I love most, talking Dodger baseball with you. Are you new around here? Welcome to the family. Glad you found us. If you're an everydayer, you already know what's up. You're the heartbeat that keeps Locked On Dodgers going. Before jumping right into our first topic, a quick apology to everybody. We went dormant for the last 2 days. I'm obviously still in the injury report on the IL, not at 100%, but we're back today. I'm going to tough through it. I'm going to fight through it, and hopefully you enjoy today's show. All right, topic number 1, reliever rush. Market is moving fast. The Dodgers, they're still waiting. So let's kick things off with this because, Travis, it's faster than usual right now for this time of the offseason. We just saw 3 of the top 5 relievers by WAR last year, all free agents going into 2026, come off the board in rapid succession. Raciel Iglesias, 1-year deal with the Braves. Ryan Helsley, 2-year contract from the Orioles. Devin Williams lands a 3-year deal with the Mets that guarantees him more than $50 million. Our 3 impact relievers, all 3 would have made sense for the Dodgers, and all 3 are now gone.
Yeah, Edwin Diaz, kind of the last man standing as far as like the big name relievers go. I don't know if the Dodgers are going to go and kick the tires on that or not. I know I'm a bit of a broken record when it comes to this stuff, Harry, but I think the Dodgers, there are 2 things that they are going to inform the way that they operate this offseason, specifically when it comes to relief pitching. Number 1, I think there's a little bit of a once bitten, twice shy sort of situation going on with them going out and spending money on the bullpen. That's something that they traditionally have not done. They did go and do it last year, and it didn't work out particularly well. They obviously the Kirby Yates situation didn't work out. Tanner Scott situation didn't work out. Even the trade they made at the deadline for Brock Stewart really didn't work out because he got hurt right away and was basically unavailable to pitch. So I think that, they kind of went against their better instincts. And I think that Andrew Friedman may go back to that. We can fix the bullpen on the fly and quite frankly, on the cheap relative to what they've done previously. I think that's number 1. Number 2 is, and I know, look, you, Harry, our everydayers, I think are going to get very tired of me saying this. They're banking on Tanner Scott having a good season because they're paying him a lot of money to have a good season. He is a good pitcher who had a very bad season. He was really below the line for the Dodgers last year. I don't think he's a below the line pitcher. I think he's an above the line pitcher that they need to get right, that they need to get him right, whether it's physically, whether it's mechanically, whether it's spiritually, emotionally, whatever it may be, psychologically, whatever that thing that needs to be fixed. Because if he goes, and look, he doesn't need to go from what he was, which was, quite frankly, a disappointment, to the best reliever in baseball. That's not the jump that he needs to make. He needs to go to kind of where he was before he got to LA, which is above the line, which is pretty good. And I think that's a journey that he can make. They're going to keep trying. I think one of the things that the Dodgers are both it's impressive and it's sometimes very, very frustrating is they will stick with guys. They will especially stick with guys that have a proven track record. I'll go back to just last season, a couple of seasons ago too. Think about Max Muncy. Think about Cody Bellinger, right? If you struggle for a month, they keep running you out there. 2 months, they'll keep running you out there. 3 months, a season. Max Muncy had a season where he was batting under 200 and couldn't get anything. They will keep running guys out there because they're financially committed to it. They believe in veteran players. They believe in past performance being indicative of future performance. And Tanner Scott, I get it, was really, really bad for the Dodgers last year. But buckle up, Dodger fans. You're going to see a lot of him in 2026.
My problem with that is that, okay, I get it, right? Tanner Scott, I look at it this way too. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, you know the deal. And I feel like, okay, we already saw with Tanner Scott, him leading the league with blown saves in 2025. And it's different when, for example, one piece of the lineup, 1 out of 9, isn't functioning the right way. You still got 8 other guys that can pick you up and get you to a win. When you're throwing out a closer every night or every other night to close a game, and let's be real, it wasn't all just 1-run leads that Tanner Scott blew. So there were times that it's like, hey, there you go. You got a 3-run lead. You got a 2-run lead. You got a little bit of a cushion, and it still wasn't enough for Tanner Scott. So that brings me to the big question. What is Los Angeles waiting for? Because if you watch this team last season, you know the bullpen was the one glaring weak point. Because, yes, Mookie Betts struggled. Freddie Freeman had a little slump there, too. You had players like Teoscar Hernandez, who wasn't a regular player like he was in 2024. But the bullpen, there weren't moments that you were like, all right, we're good. They clicked. It was far too often where it felt like, we're 1 reliable arm short, we're 2 short, we're 3 short. What can we do here? And now, here's what we do know. The Dodgers, they're not panicking with this situation. They're surveying the board. They're surveying all the free agents, and they're trying to avoid overpaying early like they did in 2025.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think you're right when it comes to, you can tolerate a position player struggling for a longer period of time than maybe you can a relief pitcher struggling because, like you said, there's no help on the way. He's out there by himself. He's got to do it or it either will or it won't work. I think the thing that I keep coming back to, and this isn't my opinion, this is just, seeing it happen. The relief pitchers are so volatile. They're so inconsistent. That's why they're down there for the most part, right? Those guys, the Trevor Hoffmans, the Kenley Jansens, the Mariano Rivera's, those guys don't come around very often. They just kind of sit there and have a level of excellence that doesn't really fluctuate very much. They go up and down. So I think that's part of it. And that's why I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm not betting my house that Tanner Scott's going to lead the league in saves, but I do think he'll be a lot better than he was a year ago. Number 2 is the other thing that you mentioned, Harry. I think it's a really good point. Look, one of the things I know non-Dodger fans get frustrated at looking at the way that the Dodgers are aggressive in the free agent market. They're aggressive at the trade deadline. They're willing to pay big dollars for high-end talent. But what they don't do is act impulsively. They never act impulsively. They are really deliberate in going about what they do. If they thought Ryan Helsley was the answer to their problem, they would have gone and did it, but they didn't. If they thought Raisel Iglesias was the answer to their problem, they would have gone in there and tried to get it done. They didn't. You look at Devin Williams goes to the Mets. They decided not to do it. They are really deliberate. And if they're looking at it and saying, I'm not doing it that price, they've earned the benefit of the doubt as far as I'm concerned. You're going to miss a couple, right? You're going to miss some opportunities. You go back a few years ago at some deadline deals. You're like, well, why'd you get this guy instead of that guy? They're not perfect, but what the Dodgers so far have been really good at, and maybe Scott is the first example of this, that it goes against what I'm about to say. They don't get caught up in deals that they can't get out of. They don't get caught up in deals that are very expensive, that have no utility for them moving forward. If Scott has another bad year, maybe the first time. But usually if they make a bad decision, it's on a short term. Think Michael Conforto, where, hey, didn't work out, but he's gone. It was 1 year. It didn't sink the ship. It was fine. So I think they're a little hesitant to get back in there. And if they want something, they go get it, which leads me to believe that Helsley, Diaz, Williams, Iglesias, these guys, Diaz is still available, so maybe something could happen there. But if they wanted those guys would be here. And they're not, which leads me to believe that maybe those are guys that they didn't have targeted at the top of their list to begin with.
Yeah, and this front office, they've always had a timing is leverage kind of approach. They rarely jump into the pool right away, even when the market gets active. But here's the risk. The risk is that this year's market, when it comes to relief pitching, is uniquely thin at the top. Right now, we already mentioned 3 of those guys that were available free agents in the relief pitching pool that were 3 of the top 5 in WARs from the free agent market. Those available impact arms are shrinking, and we'll talk about Edwin Diaz and Kenley Jansen and other fellas in the next couple of days, but the Dodgers definitely need a late inning leverage guy, a swing and miss weapon, and ideally someone with postseason poise, because that's the main goal, getting the Dodgers again to the World Series and winning another World Series, to do something that hasn't been done in a while, winning 3 consecutive World Series in a row, and then put yourself in position to win 4, hopefully without a baseball stoppage. But right now, the Dodgers, they're playing it cool. The question is whether they can afford to play it cool. And speaking of aggression, one team that isn't waiting around is Toronto. Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, the Blue Jays just dropped some serious money on their rotation, and suddenly they look like a legit problem for the rest of the AL, and maybe even for the Dodgers again.
The NFL Sunday, well, it moves really, really fast. One big play and suddenly it all feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so incredibly exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. And with FanDuel, you can place bets as the action starts to unfold on every drive, every momentum swing, and every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, right? A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. That's when FanDuel lets you jump into the moment, because live spreads and money lines, boom, they adjust instantly. Go back and look at that Rams-Carolina game that we were talking about on Locked On Rams the other day. It just was all over the place. Player props update as guys start to heat up. You could bet next touchdown scorers, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, and every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Check out our YouTube channel where you can subscribe for free. Smash that notification bell so you never miss a beat. Full episodes, hot takes, breaking Dodgers news, and more. If it drops, you're on it. That's how you become an everydayer here on Locked On Dodgers. Shout out to all the crew out there that's always commenting during the premiere of our show. We really, really appreciate every one of you. All right, Toronto loading up. The AL's new nightmare? Let's talk some Blue Jays because, wow, Toronto just made 2 major additions. Dylan Cease on a 7-year, $210 million deal, and Cody Ponce on a 3-year contract for $30 million. And he's been out of Major League Baseball now for multiple years. And look at that contract he just got from the Blue Jays. Here's why it matters. The Blue Jays, they already had a strong rotation foundation after making it to the World Series in 2025. Now they've added Cease, and who's one of the best pure stuff arms in baseball, and Ponce, a stabilizing mid-rotation arm who can give them bulk innings. You combine that with what they already had, and suddenly the AL picture changes, which last year, Travis, we weren't expecting much from the Blue Jays after a 2023 last place finish in the AL, 2024, last place finish in the AL East, and now look at them. Now they're being aggressive because they're like, hey, we can make it to the World Series. Now we got to figure out a way to win the World Series.
Yeah, I think I like what Toronto has done, like philosophically, right? They kind of, I don't know if I'd say they came out of nowhere, but they were not expected to win their division. They certainly weren't expected to win the pennant, and they were within, a cleat, Will Smith's cleat of winning the World Series. They got really close. I love that they're going back into the pool. I love that they're trying to get a little bit better and get over that hump, because we've seen so many teams that get close and like, well, it didn't happen. And then they start to go in the other direction. They cut payroll and everything else. So if I were a Blue Jay fan, I would like what's happening. Now, here's the deal. That Dylan Cease deal is exactly the kind of stuff that the Dodgers would never, ever, ever do. because this is a perfect example of a guy who's pretty good, but is he a difference maker? And I don't think that the answer you can say unequivocally is yes. Maybe. Now, he may be able to show up and win you a game in a big moment because, that can happen in the big leagues. But is this a guy like Blake Snell who you just throw out there and you win? I don't think so. Is this a guy like Yamamoto who, when he pitches, you win? Ohtani, right? Even Tyler Glasnow. We've talked about this. I know he gets hurt a lot, but when he's pitching, he doesn't lose very often. Like he's almost money in the bank. We've seen the Dodgers play Dylan Cease a bunch of times in San Diego and other places. I don't know about you, Harry, but when I see him, I'm like, yeah, we got a shot tonight. Like he's not one of those guys that makes you feel like it is over. To kind of stick in Toronto for a second.
He's not Scooble. He's not Skates.
No, not in a million ways. He's not Trey Savage. Like when we watch Trey Savage, it's like, whoa, like this is a problem. This guy is absolutely untouchable right now. Now, Savage has got a long way to go before we see whether he can do that season after season after season. But that Cease deal is, again, it's just another good example. The Dodgers don't do stuff like that. Don't pay big money, but they are getting premium sort of talent. Now, maybe a Blue Jay fan or a Blue Jay executive would say that's what Cease is. I haven't seen it. I've seen the Dodgers play against him. I've seen them beat him. I've seen them knock him around. He does not scare me the way that some of those other guys that we've talked about have. But if I were a Blue Jay fan, I like that they're going back, that they're going for it. That this is one of the operating principles of the Dodgers that I find so incredibly exciting. They're never satisfied. They're constantly trying to improve their team. They're constantly looking for ways to gain an advantage. They're constantly looking to develop and get younger and get better. And it is the perfect thing you want as a fan of your team is for them to want it as much as you do. I think Toronto's at least giving it a shot. I like that part.
No doubt about it. And as a Dodger fan, I'm like, hey, man, I'm happy that there's a team like the Blue Jays who last year they were the fifth highest payroll in baseball, if not the fourth highest payroll in baseball. And then this year they're like, hey, let's keep on going all in and let's try to figure out, because let's remember, they try to get Shohei Ohtani. They try to get Roki Sasaki. They try to get Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And they weren't the favorites to keep Vladimir Guerrero Jr. until they threw a huge pile of money. They backed up the Brinks truck and it was like, here it is. And Vladdy was like, you know what? I like Canada. I like Toronto. Let's stay here. And I'm happy that a team that is investing on their squad gets compensated by a trip to the World Series, getting so close to winning the World Series. And instead of going like in a Texas Rangers way now in recent years of being like, well, we want it, that's enough, right? We don't have to win it again. It's like, no. You have to keep being aggressive. You enjoyed that? You enjoyed going to the World Series? Give that to your fans again. You'll be able to raise the prices of your season tickets, of your single game tickets, of your postseason tickets, because you're giving them consistency and they're going to want to keep supporting that squad. The Blue Jays, they have a great fan base. They show up most of the time, but at the same time, if you have a winner, there's going to be an even higher demand, even from people who don't follow baseball, even from people who aren't fans of yours. They'll become fans of your winners. And right here with Cease, it's like, hey, man, you're investing over $200 million. With a guy like Ponce, he was the MVP in the KBO in 2025. The record was ridiculous. 17-1, 1.89 ERA, 252 strikeouts in nearly 181 innings. That's cool, Travis. KBO, MLB, two completely different monsters. But at the same time, hey, they threw $30 million at him, and look at that rotation right now. Kevin Gausman, Trey Savage, Jose Barrios, Shane Bieber, and now add Cease and Ponce to this group. And it's like, yo, you know what? They'll be able to have the depth to survive injuries like the Dodgers did. The firepower to win October matchups and top-end talent to push every series into the coin flip zone.
Yeah, maybe, right? I like what they're doing. I like the aggressiveness, but this is what you just said, I think, is the great question mark. And this is the only thing, I think this is the Dodgers' biggest advantage. What you just described is, think about the way that the Dodgers operated last season. Basically, Yamamoto was the only guy that played a full season. That rotation of absolute nightmares for the opposition, Snell, Ohtani, Glasnow, right on down the line. They basically played about a third of the season, maybe a little bit more than a third of the season. No one can do that. other than the Dodgers. No one can play 2/3 of the season with one pitcher that you are counting on and then 6 or 7 other guys that you can just throw. No other team has an Emmett Sheehan or a Robleski, or last year, in this case, a Clayton Kershaw, who, while not being, the Hall of Famer that he is, was a serviceable major league pitcher for a good chunk of the season. You don't have wave after wave after wave of guys that you can throw at this to just get into the postseason and then really start to throw the heavy blows. If 1 or 2 of those guys drop out, they're in trouble. They just don't have the ability to backload the way that the Dodgers do. That is their greatest weapon. But again, I like what Toronto did. I like that they're being aggressive. I think that it's exciting because, look, you used the perfect example. Look at what happened to the Rangers when they won the World Series a couple of years ago. It's like they finally broke through. They spent a lot of money to get those guys like Corey Seager, guys like Marcus Semien, and it worked. Good for them. But they're already trying to figure out a way to take it down. They're already, they backed up. They weren't able to kind of go through it. It's hard to repeat. We've seen that. The Dodgers made it by that much. And then they got to kind of like, okay, we're going to move Corey Seager. It happens quick. And that's why the Dodgers are the Dodgers. And that's why everyone else is everyone else. Toronto going for it again. I respect it a great deal.
Yeah, and are the Blue Jays the biggest threat in the American League? Because Houston is always in the mix.
Yep.
Seattle is right there. The
Yep.
Yankees, if healthy, they have
Yep.
the star power. And if Steinbrenner ain't scared and asking for a salary cap, they're always a threat. But right now, Toronto is the one forcing the conversation. And I wouldn't be against round 2 in late October 2026 between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays. And speaking of contenders, FanDuel already has their pick for 2026. And let's just say Dodger fans will like what they're hearing. Next on Locked On Dodgers, is the hype legit? Let's jump into the numbers. Don't forget to follow Locked On Dodgers not only on YouTube, but on X, Instagram, and TikTok as well. You can find Travis on social media at Travis Rodgers on X and Instagram. Meanwhile, I'm at Harry Ruiz on X, at Harry_Ruiz on Instagram, and at Harry Ruiz_ on TikTok. The Dodgers are odds-on favorites, but are they right? Let's close things out with betting markets because FanDuel released their 2026 futures, and the Dodgers aren't just favorites. They are heavy favorites. The Dodgers are going to enter the offseason at plus 360 to win the World Series. Next closest, the Yankees at plus 700. Follow that up with the Phillies at 10-1, Mets at 11-1, Mariners 12-1, Astros 14-1. Travis, that right there is a massive gap in favor of the Dodgers.
It is. And you look at some of those other teams, the Phillies is the one that kind of jumps out at me. The Phillies are getting old. And the Phillies feel a little stale relative to where they've been the last couple of years. Like, you look at guys like Bryce Harper. We'll see what happens with Kyle Schwarber, Nick Castellanos. Like, these guys, they're starting to get older. JT Realmuto. The Dodgers are old too, but they don't feel stale the way that some of those other teams do. I think that the typical challengers to the Dodgers' supremacy at this point, like the Yankees, like the Phillies, these sorts of teams, I think you're going to see them back up a little bit. I think that's why the gap has gotten a little bigger near the top. I think where the threat comes from is a team that maybe we're not really even looking at right now, that maybe you don't think of as one of the teams that's going to I'll go back to this. A team that I thought was going to be really good last year that just never found their footing was Atlanta. Atlanta's got a lot of good players. They just couldn't quite get it figured out. If they get a little healthier on the mound, that's an interesting one. The Padres are kind of always there. They're getting a little older too. It just feels like it's going to be one of those teams that kind of jumps up. The Tigers are interesting too. If they keep Tarek Skubal and they're able to kind of take that next step, I think that they were a pretty good team last year as well. The free agency's got to shake out. There aren't a ton of huge names that are gonna swing the odds one way or the other, but the Dodgers are the favorites for a very good reason. They have the best players. I mean, it's not any more complicated than that as far as I see it, and they have more of them. They had, like we just talked about with the pitching. Think about what's coming back. You've got River Ryan coming back. You've got all of these other pitchers, that Gavin Stone that wasn't available a year ago. Gavin Stone was the best pitcher on the Dodgers for 2/3 of 2024, the year they won the World Series. He didn't throw a pitch last year. Sheehan's and Robleskis, all those guys that are depth pieces could be starring pieces in this. You're going to see more and more guys get opportunities in left field. So that they're the favorites is not a surprise. That where it gets interesting is back-to-back years of playing into November, of really leaning on guys in a way that is unusual, Yamamoto in particular. How does it look when they come back? Ohtani, a full year on the mound. Does his body hold up? Does him pitching and hitting for a full season affect his offense? Like, there are variables that could go against the Dodgers, to be sure, but they just have so many safety measures in place that it's really hard to envision them not being near the top of the pack when the postseason. Once postseason starts, all bets are off. Anything can happen at that point, but they're going to win the division. They're going to go to the playoffs. I mean, it feels stupid to say it as we're sitting here on December 3rd that something is that much of a certainty, but they are. I mean, the Dodgers had about as bad of a regular season as they could have possibly had last year, and they comfortably won the division. So if things even go moderately okay, they're going to win the division again.
Our pals over at FanDuel, they're not just optimistic, they're confident about the Dodgers. And you just mentioned Ruiz and Travis, but it's like the roster foundation is elite. The young arms took a major step forward, and the veteran arms, they are rock solid. The lineup, it's still one of the deepest in baseball, and the front office history tells us that they're not done adding. But here's a caution. Being the favorite in December doesn't win you anything in October. We've seen this movie before, and how many times did we talk after 2020 and heck, even in the mid-2010s, hey, the Dodgers are the favorites to win the World Series, and they didn't do so. So it's like, hey, it's cool to talk, it's cool to have, but actions speak louder than words and than numbers in sports books.
Yeah, for sure. Look, like I said, getting to the playoffs, I think, is what a lot of these odds are predicated on, right? Because here's some breaking news, Harry. You can't win the World Series if you don't make the playoffs. So you got to make the playoffs first, which this is the code that the Dodgers have cracked in a way where they're virtually guaranteed a playoff spot because, and I'm knocking on wood right now, take the best player, Shohei Ohtani, and just say, for whatever reason, he pulls a Michael Jordan. He wants to go play basketball for a summer, okay? He dips, and you're like, who's the best team in the National League? It's the Dodgers. Even if you take their best player off, take their two best guys off, who's the best team? Now we're in more of a different conversation, but it's probably still the Dodgers. And that's what they have. They have this depth. They have this redundancy. They have these security systems in place where even with a season where all of your starting pitchers miss most of the time, they win the division. And once you, like I said, once you get into the postseason, you're flipping coins. It's a weighted coin flip. If you're better, you got a better chance. But I don't need to tell Dodger fans this. I don't need to tell the Dodgers were one brain fart of a Ryan Kerkering away from maybe not getting out of the wild card round. They were one cleat away from losing on a review in Game 7 of the World Series. It was a Will Klein pitching 4 shutout innings in Game 3 from this being a, hey, man, they didn't repeat. It happens that quickly, and it's that close, even when you have that kind of talent advantage.
And just to close out with the numbers, look at the NL pennant odds. Dodgers plus 180. So you would bet $100, win 180 plus your $100. But then Phillies plus 500. That's over double from the Dodgers. Padres 11-1, Giants 18-1, and then look at other divisional opponents. Diamondbacks 33-1, Rockies dead last 500-1. So that's just look at the difference between the teams in the National League West, and the Dodgers, they're always among the favorites. And postseason baseball doesn't always reward the best team, but still these odds show one thing very clearly: the baseball world expects Los Angeles to be back on top. Now we wait to see if the front office matches the expectations with the additions fans are hoping for, including talking about the bullpen. And tomorrow we're going to talk, should the Dodgers consider Kenley Jansen as an option for 2026? All right. That'll do it for today's episode. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. If you're still craving more baseball talk, have the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night be your second listen. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Travis, thank you so much, man. Can't wait to see you tomorrow.
Feel better, my friend.
Hopefully so. We appreciate you riding with us. Until next time, keep it real. Keep it Dodger Blue.